there, classmates. We're checking out the patch notes for Season of the Malignant for the first season of Diablo 4. And if you noticed me in a different position today, I'm trying out a new VTuber program called Warudo. It has incredible customization for poses and whatnot. So now I get to just have a nice casual sit down talk with you guys. So let's see. 6 unique items. This is the bread and the butter of the patch notes. This is what everybody wanted to know. General for everybody, a Havrarian Spear of Lycander, a unique staff. Gain a random shrine effect for 10 to 20 seconds after killing an elite enemy. Can only occur once every 30 seconds. That sounds okay, considering all the shrine effects are pretty useful, but an entire weapon slot, and it's considered extremely rare, I think it's garbage. Barbarian Azure Wrath, unique sword, lucky hit. Your core skills have up to 20% chance to freeze enemies for 3 seconds and deal cold damage? That's exactly what I want for like my Rogue's Death Knight build. Why couldn't this be the general one? Druid Flesh Render, one-hand mace, debilitating roar and blood howl, deal a certain amount of damage to nearby poisoned enemies. I haven't played Druid, so I don't know how useful this is and how much you can actually poison enemies, but okay. It seems pretty niche, like you need quite a setup for it in order to get it rolling, but maybe I'm wrong. Necromancer, unique shield, lidless wall. On lucky hit, when you have an active Bone Storm, hitting an enemy outside of a Bone Storm has up to a 5 to 25% chance to spawn an additional Bone Storm at the location. Each of your active sacrifice bonuses increases the chance by 25%, and the total number of additional Bone Storms you can have is +1. I know little to nothing about Necromancer, but what I do know is that, Bone Spear, so this doesn't have anything to do with that, so I'm guessing it's bad? I don't know, we'll see what they're balancing. Here's my class for right now. Rogue Eagle Horn, and it's a unique bow, which means I don't care, but let's see what the effect is. Penetrating shot, and I don't care. Has a 30 to 80% chance to fire an arrow that bounces off walls and scenery. Hitting enemies from behind with penetrating shot will make them vulnerable for 3 seconds. That's kind of garbage. Why is it such a specific setup? I mean, I get it. You fire it straight through a crowd of people, hits the wall, bounces back, makes everyone vulnerable. Or you could just run fucking Exploit Rune and make everyone vulnerable when you touch them. In general. So that's garbage. And here's the class I'm gonna be playing. Sorcerer, the Oculus unique wand. Gain the effect of the teleport enchantment for free. When you invade using teleport enchantment, you are taken to a random location. What? So we get teleport for free, but we're randomly teleported away? That's terrible considering how this game works right now with things on the ground being able to basically one-shot you, especially if you're in a fight like Uber Lilith. That's really bad. So basically the one thing in this game that is actually has emphasis put on it compared to the other Diablos, which is movement and dodging and positioning, this unique just completely throws that out the window. Kinda garbage. Now here's the new legendary aspects. Hopefully this is better than the garbage uniques I just read. Audacity, when there are at least 5 close enemies, stun them for 2 to 4 seconds. This can only occur once every 20 seconds. Does that mean in general? Does that mean on an ability use? Does that mean once 5 people are within a certain radius, it just bursts out a stun? I mean, that could be good for some classes. I know for Rogue it's garbage because we have a talent that literally just states dodge to an enemy and then the next flurry literally AoE stuns everything it touches. But maybe this could be good for other classes, I don't know. Craven Mobility. You gain 20 to 40% increased movement speed when moving away from slowed or chilled enemies. Well, I don't quite get that one. Why would you be moving away from them? Barbarian Ancestral Charge. Charge calls forth 4 agents who also charge, dealing 50 to 100% of normal damage. That's kind of cool. It's like Hecarim from League. Druid Subterranean. Poison Creepers active also casts Landslide in a circle around you. Earth skills deal 10 to 20% increased damage to poison enemies. Okay, Earth skills cause poison. Maybe the other unique up there isn't so bad. It sounds okay. Necromancer Gore Quills. Blood Lance will consume blood orbs to also conjure lances from them. Each additional blood lance deals 20 to 50% of normal damage and prioritizes targeting unlanced enemies. That seems pretty good. It's kind of like an auto-targeting, just AoE blood lancing all around the place. So that could be really good for doing blood lance AoE builds, I guess. Rogue, I'm hoping this is good, but I can see the word pestilent, so for my playstyle, probably not. Every third cast of Puncture is poison imbued with 100 to 150% normal potency. Puncture, I can't remember if that is the blink behind an enemy's stab that you can choose, or if it's an arrow ability. I would imagine it's the mobility ability. So every third cast is poison imbued. I mean, yeah, that could be good. I mean, yeah, we'll probably take that, because what is that? That's a free poison imbue with over 100% potency for just using an ability that people already use anyway? Okay, sure. Sorcerer. Searing wards, offensive. After spending 200 to 100 mana, your next firewall is free to cast and will destroy incoming small missiles. Okay, I mean, that sounds good. Free firewall. I don't know how much people use firewall, but like, kind of mid legendary aspects. I don't know the other classes though, so maybe I'm wrong. The druid one, I guess, seems good. Barbarian bugs fixes, which looks like they're just nerfing the damage of barbarian into the ground. A lot of druids bug fixes. A lot of them seem to be bug fixes centered around abilities simply not doing damage. So druid, that's a buff for druid. Okay. Rogue, fixed an issue where Twisting Blades would not come back when the ability killed a bloated corpse-seen enemy. Thank God, because that was annoying. Sorceress, fixed an issue where Aspect of Control was applying its damage bonus 3 times for staggered bosses. That must be how the exploit for a sorceress literally beating the living hell out of Uber Lilith came about. Oh my god, fixed an issue where monsters with a cold blah 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 affix would freeze players in a one-hit in Nightmare Dungeons with a cold enchanted affix. That has happened so many times with the cold water wall coming up, you're instantly frozen and you fucking die. So thank god for that. And then fixed an issue where cold enchanted froze players more often than intended in higher world tiers. Thank god, again. Fixed an issue where a chest could spawn that would provide infinite loot. Never got to do it myself. Fixed an issue where Helltide didn't give a shit if you were standing in town. Good. Fixed an issue where items of higher power than intended were dropping from rare monsters. What the fuck do you mean an issue? Is this not the point of rare monsters? These look like a bunch of fixes on a quick skim of like different events not summoning enemies, so the timer runs out and you can't do anything, timer's not progressing. This is all good and dandy. Gameplay updates, here we go. Whispers will no longer reward sigil dust. Why? Overall loot quality has been significantly improved for silent chests. Cool, I'm still not going to spend my obols on it. The channel time for the leave dungeon ability has been increased from 3 to 5 seconds. Why? What the fuck? Why? What? Explain to me what exploit's being happened because we're leaving the dungeon 2 seconds quicker. What the fuck? Side quests renown reward values are increased. Dungeon renown reward values increased. Good. Ooh, the change is also retroactive? Okay, good. All right. Hell yeah, that's really good. Okay, so for me, World Tier 4, once you hit level 75, every level after that, the monsters cap. You start getting progressively stronger and stronger after 75. A lot of people wanted this, but in my opinion, at level 75 to 80, your build is so rounded out anyway, you're fucking obliterating mobs anyway. Who really cares? The biggest problem with the enemy scaling to your level was problems like the ice wall instead of freezing you, and then you getting blown up in 14 ground effects because you can't move. Which it seems like they've resolved a lot of those issues. So it's in the game and it's great, but I think it's going to have such an insignificant effect on players, they're not really going to care or notice. Reward experience for completing Whispers in 3 and 4 tiers have been significantly increased. Good, look at that. Whispers might be worth doing. Helltide, they have heavily increased the cost of the mystery chests, and that just feels absolutely terrible. Why would you do this? I open 2 mystery chests normally every Helltide, and then I'm bored of Helltide. I don't want to keep running around blindly doing open world content for Aberrant Cinder. So this feels like crap. I think they should have just increased this to 200, see how it felt, and then increase it again. What people are still going to do is just bounce with a Helltide map open on Helltide website, bounce from event to event to event to event to event to event, and just do the event non-stop. So this is a huge nerf, and this is a complete placebo change to make you think that they're trying to balance something. Now here's the other juice of the patch notes: straight class balancing and aspect balancing. I haven't played other classes, but you don't have to play other classes to understand whether something's a buff or a nerf. For what I'm saying about Barbarian, buffs across the board. This looks like buffs across the board. There might be 1 or 2 nerfs in here that completely gut a playstyle that people were doing, and that's where I was reading about people saying that they're just nerfing everything and not buffing. Now let's look at Druid. Again, for what I'm saying, Druids, buffs across the board. Necromancer. Glyph that affects all damage instead of core skills. Buff, 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 buff. 95% buffs, and there's like 2 nerfs in here. And it looks like they didn't even touch Bone Spear. So maybe they think Bone Spear is fine. Once again, I don't see all these nerfs people are bitching about. So far, every class I've looked at has been massively fucking buffed. Are you sure about that? Now let's look at Rogue. I know I wasn't talking about the other ones, but right off the bat, Cal Chop Cast, increased speed, enhanced cold imbue, lucky hit going up. I love it. The Death Knight build lives on, baby. I think that's the one I use that gives me a lot of lifesteal, and if it is, that hurts. So yeah, these are buffs pretty much a fuckload of buffs off the board once again. And Sorcerer, here's the class that I'm going to be playing when I start the game up. I'm on Sorcerer, so far nothing but buffs, so here we're starting to find some reasonable nerfs, because I've seen, like, the Ice Spike build for Sorcerer was like the #1 fucking build everyone ran, because this is all people used and it was boring to see, and God forbid I didn't want to play it. So far after that, everything was buffs, and now we get the items. Every single class has been buffed, more so than nerfed. Every single class has been buffed, but we still have some aspect balancing, so let's see. An aspect that gave maximum bonus armor, a pretty fat nerf. If this was the main reason people were able to survive high tier dungeons, I wouldn't know. The highest tier I ever went up to was like 30. Because I got so bored and burnt out in the game, I didn't want to keep going. If this aspect was so important for high tier, this is a massive nerf. And then 20% if you get a really good, that's another huge one. If any class uses this, huge nerf to this aspect. So they're trying to balance some stuff. It seems like aspect of Disobedience Retribution were two outliers that they just crippled the kneecaps of. Maybe this is what people are complaining about. Drop rate adjustments, increased bonus to drop ancestral and sacred items in Nightmare Dungeons from 5 to 10%. Cool, good, more loot. Removed a 20% chance to drop an extra equipment item from elite monsters outside of Nightmare Dungeons and Helltide. I don't know why. Okay, well that's dumb. I thought you were trying to incentivize us to do the open world and do whispers, which are normal dungeons. Like, what the fuck is this? Whatever, moving on. Increased chance to drop an extra equipment item from elite monsters in Nightmare and Helltide like 10%. Great, it's more rewarding. But why are you shoveling us into Nightmares and Helltide? Can you give us more shit to do, maybe in the open world? Maybe make more events like Helltide. Create something else. Nobody really does. Does anyone give a shit about Legion events? Does anyone give a shit about world bosses? Like, you'll do it when it comes up if you're in the area, but like, you're not scrambling to put an alarm to make sure you don't miss it. Nightmare Dungeons now have a 50% chance to drop a second legendary item upon completion. Great. More loot at the end of a Nightmare Dungeon. And Nightmare Dungeons now give 3 rare items upon completion up for 1. That's big. That is big, especially if they're ancestral. All the more sane, better. The problem is this is starting to feel like Diablo 3. Well, the only thing to do in Diablo 3, the only thing in the entire game of Diablo 3 to do that was relevant, the rifts. To be fair, we did not need Nightmare Dungeons to be buffed in order to do Nightmare Dungeons. We were still doing Nightmare Dungeons. Do you know why? Because there was nothing else to do in the fucking game. And now they're shoveling literally everything into Nightmare Dungeons and taking it out of the rest of the game. I do not want this to end up, because it's a Blizzard game, I'm going to make this analogy, like Warlords of Draenor garrisons. And what I mean by that is you're in one spot in the game, going into instances over and over and over and over, and you're never really doing anything else out into the open world. I don't want this to turn into sit in town, use key, port to dungeon, port back to town, use key, port to dungeon, port back to bound, use key, adjust the scaling of the greed shrine. Unless that thing is dropping thousands of gold every time I hit a monster, it's fucking pointless. World bosses now drop potions more often. Who cares? They're world bosses. If you die to a world boss, you suck. Okay, here's another big juice of the patch notes. The affixes on items. Lucky hit chance while you have a barrier. Okay, we're starting to have a barrier build. Get a barrier, get a fuckload of buffs. This is reduced by 12% on helm and 20% when on amulet or offhand. Are we now having aspects that literally just say, this sucks more if you put it on this piece? Why not just stick it to, let it keep saying, this is better on these pieces, because that is better to look at as a player. The core stat bonuses on weapons have been overperforming. We're pulling back on this bonus. So they gutted core stats on weapons across the fucking board. That hurts. I have a crossbow that I got at like level 40. On level 70, it has like 100, I fully upgraded it, like it has like 160 dexterity on it. And now it only has, I don't know what, 120, or whatever the fuck the math is. Still, it's cool. Every class, every player in the game just lost a little chunk of core stats now. Great. What the fuck is this? There's no way you people are this fucking dumb. We're seeing critical strike damage and vulnerable damage often viewed as a hard requirement for a build success in Diablo 4. Yes, because the rest of your stats suck and the way your buckets work makes it hard for us to find good gear. We believe this is a step towards allowing more builds to flourish and will continue to make changes in support of this goal. Out the bat, all vulnerable damage slashed by 40%. Are you out of your goddamn minds? I'm gonna look what the other 3 bullet points are above this, and I swear to God I'll fucking flip if it is not good enough to balance you destroying every build in the game. Critical strike damage reduced with fucking rogues, druids, and necros by 17. Great. Fucking wonderful. Lightning critical strike damage, there goes sorcerers. Critical strike damage, there goes literally everybody, including barbs. So the nerfs on our gear are retroactive, but the buffs on our gear I don't think are. Maybe I'm wrong, but even so, these nerfs? No buff you give is going to heavily outweigh what the fuck you just did to the gear. Let's keep going. Now I'm starting to see why people are pissed. Critical strike damage and hero soldier reduced by... I lost feeling in my left hand. Am I having a stroke? Vulnerable damage inherent on crossbows. Like, oh my god, Rogue's dead. My Rogue's dead. How does that feel good for any player? How does this feel good for any player? If they would have told us ahead of time, hey, we're gonna nerf vulnerability and critical strike damage, and given us time to find gear to help replace that when the time comes that they're gonna gut our damage so we can easily save good shit, swap to the good shit, and not get hit as hard, this would have been fine. But no, they blindside us with this.
Why? Why does he keep kicking me in the dick?
So not only did they reduce the vulnerability damage that crossbows inherently get, they overall reduced vulnerability damage in general. Damage to crowd control enemies decreased. Damage to frozen enemies increased by 20%. Well, I mean, my rogue survives a little bit because I'm a Frost Death Knight build. They are shifting power away from defensive affixes and putting them into offensive affixes. The blatant affixes on gear, cold damage, fire damage, physical damage, cutthroat damage, just increased by 25% everything across the fucking board. I'm not a mathematician, I don't have a PhD or any of that. Regardless, I am not qualified to understand. From what I read just up here, especially considering it's the amount of time it's going to take us to try to adapt to these changes, this is not enough to save our Eternal Realm characters. All of our Eternal Realm characters are fucked. Unless you anticipated Armageddon in Diablo, more so than Armageddon already exists, and you stockpiled backup gear just in case, every character's fucked. And to be honest, if this is better for the long-term health of the game, good. I guess it is better for Blizzard to completely rip the band-aid off now. Just get this out of the way, don't sugarcoat this, don't spread this along several seasons and corrupt the flavor of several seasons. Just make this first season like, hey, our game was built in a way that we didn't want it to be built. We are gonna heavily just take all your damage away, fucking put it over here. You're gonna have to re-go get it. Sorry, but this is gonna be better for the long run. That's about it. And then all the defensive aspects have been reduced as well. We already knew that. All this right here, this made me mad. I didn't know what people were bitching about, whining and complaining like little babies until I read this part right here, and it all came crashing into my face. I completely understand. But we all did rely on this stuff, but that is not our fault. That's the way the game was built. It's like a cop coming to you in the dead of night, pulls you over, says, your headlights cannot be yellow, they must be blue or white, here is a ticket. So you just have to play the game. So you go get blue or white headlights, a different cop pulls you over and says, your headlights cannot be blue or white, they have to be yellow. And it's like, what the fuck? Well, anyway, that's the patch notes. It's gonna feel different, and the Malignant gems are also supposed to give us a massive power increase, so a lot of these nerfs could have been because they knew these Malignant hearts are gonna be some big dick-redos for our gear. So yeah, I'm gonna play it. I'm not going to make a video because nobody wants to watch a video of me doing 800 Nightmare Dungeons or redoing the story, but I am going to make a review about the season. Hopefully I can get to a high enough level. I want to get to at least level 70, experience the content, and see how it is. So yeah, that's the patch notes for the new season of the Malignant. See you in the next video, classmates. Hey, classmate, keep your voice down. Grandmaster doesn't like us talking during lesson. Do you think you could give me a like and a sub? Every bit helps, you have no idea. Grandmaster's coming this way. Act natural.